welcome to this, our week 7 Writers' Read Session 2018. Golly, we're in for a really exciting afternoon today. Before we introduce our starter, Sandra Ireland, I just have a couple of little announcements. First of all, as ever, I want to thank Jamie and all the guys at Tonic. Yeah, do I need this microphone? Sandra, you like a microphone? Yeah. Okay, so that's better. I want to thank Jamie and the guys at Tonic for providing this wonderful venue that's so convivial and conducive to creative thinking and discussions. And also, of course, to thank Sandra Ireland herself for coming along as one of our sort of star term ex-students. Before we kick off, I just want to make this little announcement, and I know that Sue is putting this into our newsletter, but the Kelpie Doris Books not short story, children's book award has just been announced, and they are looking for entries. And the woman, Kirsty Gunn, has asked if I can ask you lot specifically, so there might be something in the bottom drawer, children's book ideas, maybe that you've had on the go, that you've never quite been doing anything. This might be an opportunity to drive those ideas forward. I've got some details here if you want to come up and see them afterwards, but otherwise you can go on to the Florist Books website, Kirsten says, and Google the Kelpie Prize. It's a very old and established prize. It's a part of the Scottish Literary Scene. Anyhow, that's the end of the boring announcement bit. My pinging with pride. Pinging with pride is an expression that my sister and I started using when we were children, but it totally pertains to how I feel about Sandra Ireland, who came through our undergraduate programme and then our graduate programme, and has gone on to be a huge success story. Her second novel has just been published to great acclaim. Her first was shortlisted for the Saltire First Novel Award and garnered amazing reviews. Everywhere I went this summer, I was just telling Sandra, I saw her new book splattered everywhere. Not tube stations, but train stations and bus shelters, and every bookshop I went into was piled high with Sandra Ireland. And Sandra's just been talking about the kind of exhausting business of being on the circuit to promote her work. Jenny Brown, her agent, went bumbling up to my husband at the Frankfurt Book Fair earlier this month to say, thank goodness for Kirsty and Gail and the Writing Practice and Study Programme for providing wonderful writers like Sandra Ireland. So anyhow, that's enough of my kind of fan club introduction. We're going to hear Sandra read from the new book, and we're going to talk about her approaches to fiction, and she's also going to give you all kinds of thoughts and insights about making this journey from student to wannabe writer, to published writer, to successful writer. But for now, let us all just give a very warm welcome to Sandra Ireland, author of Bone Deep and Beneath the Skin. Sandra, we thought we might start with you reading from a little section, and then we're going to have a conversation, and we can at any point open things up to the audience. You know how we want this whole atmosphere here to be very relaxed and informal. What would you like to begin to read for us today?
Well, I think we mentioned relationships first. I just want to say thank you for that lovely introduction, and it's really, really good to be back here and hopefully have a chance to chat with you all, because you're all in the same path that I took. And yeah, we talked a little bit about relationships in the book, so I'm going to read you a little bit about Lucy, who is the main character. There's two parallel stories going on here in Birlinn. There's a very ancient folk tale which is being transcribed by Lucy. She's got a lot of problems of her own. She's fallen in love with the wrong person, she has to leave home, and she ends up working for a retired academic who is very keen to record all these stories. So Lucy's helping her out. But one of the stories strikes a chord with Lucy, and she becomes quite obsessed with it, quite preoccupied. And she's also preoccupied with Reuben, who is her sister's boyfriend. She's got herself in a situation which is not ideal, but she can't find her way out of it. So the bit I'm going to read to you is from this, and it's just a little example. We were talking a little bit about the relationships in the book, and from your point of view, from a writerly point of view, how you portray those relationships. And I think for me, the most interesting aspect of it is the toxic nature of this relationship and how people come together and try and stay apart and come together. That's sort of fatal attraction, I think you would say. So I'm going to read it for you without further ado. This is in Lucy's voice. Mac has dismissed me for the afternoon, promising to call if she needs anything. It's a bit of a relief. I find it hard to concentrate when she's around. She's always muttering something to herself, pulling books from the shelves. I moon about the cottage for a bit, getting in my own way and thinking all the things I should be doing. I've been here over a week now, and I still haven't unpacked my suitcase. A pile of dirty laundry is growing steadily in the corner of my bedroom. I'm in the little utility room at the back trying to figure out the washing machine when I hear a car. Probably a postman with his endless supply of junk mail. I turn my attention back to the control panel and manage to activate a red light. I'm so absorbed in what I'm doing, a sudden knock at the back door makes me jump. I open the door, and there he is, Reuben, the last person I expect, the only person I want to see. My heart leaps. It's been, 2 months? He looks achingly familiar, as if we've been apart for days, not weeks. He's alien too. There are things about him I don't recognise, sleepless hollows, lean planes. He looks on edge, his jaw is set, as if he can't stop gritting his teeth. We lock eyes on the doorstep, not speaking. We've always been the kind of couple that breathes in sync, and we're doing it now, bodies readjusting, realigning to accommodate each other. I take a step back, bare heels colliding with a wicker basket. Not noticing the pain. Reuben is gazing at me from under his wayward fringe, face full of questions. I should tell him to go. I can't see him anymore, this isn't right. But I don't. I say his name, and it feels so good to say it out loud. He smiles and I'm lost. And then I hear myself say, the place is a mess. I'm always in a mess. My bedroom was a mess the first night I ever slept with him. I'd had to bundle my knickers off the radiators and kick dirty plates under the bed. Reuben hadn't cared. He doesn't care now. He wanders past me, hesitating briefly, just letting me know he's close enough to touch me, to stroke my arm. Something flips over in my chest. I break eye contact, spin out my arm like a hostess at a dinner party. This way, just keep walking. I follow him into the kitchen, inhaling the Reuben smell. There's nothing fancy, not designer cologne or anything like that. Just an over-the-counter deodorant mixed with something indefinable and good. My insides contract. So how did you find me? I sat out of breath and distant. He comes to stop beside the table. I'd scrubbed the oilcloth after the floss incident. You'll have to read the book to find out what that's about. And reinstated it, but a faint smell of disinfectant lingers, slightly at odds with the luscious cherries on the cloth. Reuben glances around, taking in the shelves with the mismatched pottery jugs and the old glass bottles. He always loved vintage stuff. I asked about your little cafe. He turns to face me and he looks cold and pinched. That dusty blue sweater he's wearing, that was the one he had on the day we went to the coast. We had lunch in a cosy inn with fish on the menu, and we stayed there all afternoon, chatting over pints of cider. We'd stayed there that night too, in the attic bedroom with a creaky floor and an old brass bed. But before that I asked, how did you know I was in Bettamore? My mother wouldn't have told him, that's for sure. I tried to make a clean break. He'd buggered off up north and I'd sent him a text, don't try to find me, I can't do this anymore. He doesn't want to say the code and muttering something indistinct as he holds out a chair. I have to ask him to repeat it. He sits down at the table, clasping his hands in front of him, as if he's in church. Jane mentioned it at some point. I have tried to stay away, believe me. I can't believe you. I can't believe you and Jane are still living in my home when I got kicked out. Jane's the sister. You didn't really get kicked out, you left. To get a job. Yeah, that's the party line, isn't it? You're still all sticking to the bloody script. That's so like good old Mum. Don't rock the boat, sweep things under the carpet. Has she ever said anything to you? He looks at the floor and shakes his head. No. I make a dramatic little gesture with both hands. It's always the woman who gets the blame. There is no blame. It's Reuben's turn to be angry. I avoid his eyes. There is no blame. Sometimes people fall in love with the wrong person. Love. It's easy to say, isn't it? But it's not enough. Now more than ever, I need proof. Nausea rises into my throat. I sit opposite him and ache at Jerry's between us. The things we want to say are too huge to come out of our mouths, so we look at each other in silence. There are deep smudges under his eyes and his hair looks dark and washed. There's a certain satisfaction in that, an acknowledgement that I haven't been suffering alone. Eventually I manage something mundane. I offer him coffee. No, you're okay, I had a cappuccino at that cafe. Oh, you had a cappuccino? You were in a hurry to find me. I scrape at the tablecloth with my nail. I couldn't just go in and start asking random questions. You could. It's no different to asking directions, is it? The baker guy seems to have a good idea where you live. His tone makes me look up. His blue eyes are stormy. They do that, change colour with his mood. Of course he does. I work for his mother. He said you might be working. He said you might not be home. I checked the clock on the wall, it's just after 3. Technically, I am working. I'm awaiting further instruction. That's a great job to have. The baker's mother isn't very organised. Sometimes I think she forgets I'm here. So what do you do when she remembers? This and that. I walk the dogs, do the laundry, help her tidy her work. Reuben's eyebrow perks up. Any mention of something that's quirky, something unexplained, and an eyebrow twitches like it's on a thread. His eyes gleam with a fierce curiosity. I love that about him, it makes me smile. Research? Fiction. She's writing some old local legends that fall into the category of things that are beyond the civilized circle of light. Fascinating stuff. It's my turn to glean, and he smiles at me. There's appreciation there, love, and I feel a bit of me melt. I can't allow that to happen. There's a story about a blind fiddler and a woman who hurls herself up a waterfall. I don't know if she survives, it's not finished yet. His eyes bore into me. No, it's not finished yet. We can't do this. My voice is a bare whisper, and even I can hear the tears not far away. He gets up from his seat. Please don't get up, please. You can't just walk away from this. He comes round to my side of the table. I lower my head to my arms. The tablecloth is cool against my cheek. I don't want to look at him, to think about this. His hands swing my hair. His touch is soothing, but makes my system jump at the same time. The oilcloth turns damp beneath my cheek. Look at me. His voice is lower. He's crouching down, his hand on the back of my neck, not moving, just warm, gentle. I don't want to turn my head. I turn my head. I don't know who kisses who first, it just happens, no logical explanation. I want to stay here forever, close up against him, my lips on his, breathing him in. He breaks away to thumb a tear from the soft spot under my eye. My smile is shaky. We knew this would happen. As soon as I opened the door, we knew this was inevitable. But I suppose I had to turn on the chill, make both of us suffer for a while, because it's too easy. There lies the problem. It's always been too easy.
That's a terrific place to kickstart our discussion about Sally's work, because what we have here is a writer who, as you said yourself, this sense of toxic relationships. What we have in the relationship between these two novels, very different stories, very different set of characters, but I remember when Sandra came to work on her dissertation for What Became Beneath the Skin, she had this terrific idea for a thriller with all of the kind of densities and complexities that that genre demands, but also a wonderful sense of relationships. And this sense of there being something not quite right, something uneasy, something toxic. And also, that comes with that, a sense that these relationships are somehow constrained. The first novel, we have the house in Edinburgh, it's this dark, gothic place where stuff goes on. I don't want to say too much. You have bought books to sell, as you know. And the second, we have a more remote house, but again, with these two women, Lucy and Matt are kind of holed up together, and piece by piece their stories start to emerge out of the present and become part of the story that they're living. Sandra, can I begin by asking you, when you're coming up with ideas for these stories, and there's definitely themes and tones that play across the two, would you say that you're someone who begins with an interest in relationships, or would you say that it's the story that comes first?
I think it's definitely the relationship, but it's also the relationship to the setting. And the setting is one of the key points in the novels. And when I was doing my dissertation, I was very interested in the idea of the uncanny. I won't go into huge depth about that, but it's something to look up, and it's a very interesting concept. It's from, I think, German literature actually originally. I can't remember now. Yes, you're right. And it's about the idea of the home, and of the home not being a safe environment. It's just that sort of tilted aspect of it, something, as you say, something not quite right. And that certainly informed me with regard to Beneath the Skin. The idea of the home being not a home, and it being a place where the wrong things happen. I think certainly in Beneath the Skin, there's a bit in the book where the main protagonist walks into the house, and it smells as if he's been away for a long time. And I don't know if you're like me, if you go into your house after you've been on holiday, it's slightly different. It's like it's got its own personality, or like it's claimed its own personality back. That's probably me being over-imaginative, but I like to play on that in all the settings. And indeed in this book, Bone Deep, I worked for quite a long time at Birlinn in Angus. I worked for the National Trust of Scotland, and I got funding from Creative Scotland to write this book. So I had a lot of time to experience the setting of the mill. I'm sorry, I've gone away from your question now. But I had a lot of time to experience the setting of the mill, but also people's interactions with the mill. So it was about their relationship with the setting, and I think from that you can look at your characters' relationship with each other, because invariably relationships are somehow constrained by the environment that you're in, whether that's a family environment or a home environment. I'm actually going to Iceland now, which is it's in Iceland obviously, but it's a crime festival. But the panel that I'm on is about domestic noir, and I think that's a really big category. Yeah, and they're going to talk about the old Icelandic houses and how in their folklore, I guess, they have this idea of things starting off within the home, and we're going to be talking about how homely and familiar relationships can become something else, something other.
That's very interesting. I think this idea of domestic noir does sum up your work perfectly, because you do inhabit that place. It's not crime fiction full and proper, is it? It's something much more subtle and domestic and psychological.
Yeah, I mean, I never realised that I'd written a psychological thriller. It was actually Jenny Brown that said, "Oh, this is a psychological thriller," and I was actually quite pleased with myself. But I never set off to write in any kind of genre, and I think it's a mistake to do that. I think you've got to find your own voice first. But as it happened, it did seem to turn into this. But we were just talking about how you become very sort of super aware of what you're writing once you get published. But I think it's a mistake probably to begin with having a clear idea of where you want to go. You're right, the books, and even the book I'm writing at the moment, it does have crime in it, but it's not a crime novel. And I never really wanted to go down that route, and I think you've just got to trust your instincts and see where it goes.
Well, it's very interesting because you're interested in investigating the kind of small crimes that go on in daily life that then start to build up and have real moments and real dramatic effect. Can we just go quickly back to this issue of place? So you were granted a rather prestigious grant from Creative Scotland to go to the Mill House. At that point, did you have part of the draft of this story, or did the Mill House, because it's such a beautiful, clear sense of setting that you have in Dundee, the story could only happen there somehow. But had you had anything in draft at that point, or?
No, I didn't. I kept a diary of what happened at the mill, but that involved other people coming in. We had a lot of visitors to the mill, and that in itself was very interesting. And people's reactions to the mill was really good, which is what I went on to sort of investigate. But I did have experiences of being there on my own at the mill, and sometimes quite late and locking up. And there is traditionally women were not allowed into the mill, or not expected to be in the mill. And I always had that in the back of my head that this place doesn't really want me there, which again is probably my overactive imagination. But there was that certain oppressive feeling about it, and I thought this would be a brilliant place to set a story. And that was kind of coupled with the folklore. It's actually a border ballad which forms the basis of that book. And I think the old stories are the best. It's a bit of a cliche, but there are no original ideas. We were always looking for other people's work for a jumping off point. And for me, it was this old border ballad of the two sisters. It's often called the cruel sister as well. So I just kind of put the two ideas together, and that's quite a powerful way to go, I think, if you can sort of merge two disparate ideas and come up with something new.
You give us two very highly engaging protagonists in Mac and Lucy, both very different women, but sharing a sense of thorn will. Mac, we learn very quickly, is not the kind of person she seems to be. She's very charismatic, she's very idiosyncratic, living alone with her dogs, and we'll get on to the floss moment later. But you've also got these similar interests being played out beneath the skin as well. Do you think that in part your male characters, when you bring them in, have the kind of impact and force that they do because your female environment has been so carefully crafted and curated?
I think so. I mean, it is a comment that the male characters are not centre stage in the book, and I think that's fair enough, but I think it's very much written or told, the story is told from a female point of view, and I think the men are often catalysts for some of the action. Certainly in the book that will be out, my third book, which will be out next spring, hopefully. Again, it's very a female-authored story, but men are the catalyst to the things that happen. Yeah, does that answer the question? I think
the degree to which that's that you're conscious of these kinds of forces.
Actually, I wasn't really conscious of the men not having a centre stage, but I think possibly in my life I'm very independent. I socialise with women writers a lot, and maybe those ideas stem from that interaction. Although Beneath the Skin was written from a male point of view, so maybe I'll go back to that again. But I think you have to write what you have to write.
The book is constructed as a kind of backwards and forwards between the two voices, Mac and Lucy speaking in turn. Do you think there's something about the first person approach that sets those kinds of directives? I mean, it makes it very difficult for someone else to have a say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you can only, if you're writing in the first person, you can only, it's quite limiting in a sense, but in another sense it really gets you inside the head of the character. But I think you can only write from that person's point of view. And it was quite tricky, the dual narrative with Mark and Lucy, because obviously they're different ages. I had to be very conscious of the language. I had to be conscious that I wasn't giving anything away too soon, which is quite a problem and requires a lot of editing. You've got to sort of hold back the story. But I think also gives you a certain freedom to really see behind that character's eyes and see what they're thinking. And of course the other characters necessarily have to be seen through those eyes. So it probably puts the other characters at a little bit of a distance.
And as I say, Mac, who we meet first, is so very, I find him just a highly appealing character. It's someone that we don't meet enough in fiction, to my mind. You know, the woman who lives alone, who's eccentric, who's quite strong-willed and strong-minded, living very much according to her own rules and regs. I think she's an exciting person to meet. And of course, what I also love is the fact that she comes fully accessorized by the animal kingdom. I want to talk about how you write so very well about animals. We have dead animals in Beneath the Skin, but we have dogs in Bone Deep. How do you bring animals to life so vividly on the page as you do? Or dead animals, in the case of Beneath the Skin.
I go into the museum in Edinburgh quite a lot, into the taxidermy galleries. I don't know, the taxidermy in the first book was a very deliberate attempt to bring death into the home, if I can put it like that. With the dogs, Mac's dogs, it was quite accidental. And then there is a twist in that, I don't want to give too much away. Floss is a little spaniel in the book, and she actually plays quite a big part in the book, but that didn't come until afterwards, until I was nearly finished the book, and I think that happens with me quite a lot. I was at an author talk not so long ago, I can't remember who the author was. It could have been just before actually, and he said when you've finished your book, or when you're nearly finished your book, you need to add a little, you obviously you do your first draft, second, third, whatever, you need to edit it, but you need to sprinkle a little extra something, whatever that is. So it's really worth getting to 3/4 of the way through and seeing what else can you add to this mix. And it really struck a chord with me, and I find that happens quite naturally, that you'll read it through and think, what else can I add, what little twist that's going to make this all sing? And Floss was that.
Oh, how lovely.
But I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah, it's a very vivid moment of life that runs through. There's another little magic sprinkle also right at the very end. Do you want to share it with us? Because I think that some of us can recognise a dearly beloved colleague and friend in the last pages of
I'm so pleased to notice that.
Did you want to share that? I think you could share that secret without giving anything away.
Right at the end, the plot was played out, but I wanted to leave the reader with a little, what's going to happen next? So there is a character at the end who dresses in black. He has a white beard. You see where I'm going with this? Some of you the late and much loved Dr. John Stewart. I mean, everybody on the creative writing programme has been wonderful, Kirsty Gunn, Eddie, but Dr. John Stewart is no longer with us, and I wanted to just add my own little tribute. So, I can't remember what I called him, but he is a professor of bones. They call him the Bone Man, and he has drafted in to sort out the tangled web of this story. And I thought, yeah, that's Jim.
It's absolutely Jim. He's walking through the last pages. Can you give us a little reading again from the novel, and then we'll have some time for questions. I want to talk more about this business of a readership and the way you're building a kind of constituency around your books.
Okay, so this next little bit is from Lucy's point of view again, actually. She manages to, does she manage to kick Reuben into touch? I'm not quite sure, but anyway, she finds a sort of a kindred spirit in Arthur, who's Mac's son, who's a very sort of steady character. He's a baker, he keeps providing her with cakes, which is, I mean, who could resist? So he, I think he feels sorry for her, but she's very prickly, she's very spiky, and she doesn't want anything to do with them. So when Reuben is off this, I can't actually quite remember where the place is in this book, but Lucy's having a bit of a moment, she's having a bit of a meltdown. She's sitting beside the mill pond and not quite sure where she's going. It doesn't take long for the pond to freak me out. I don't like it down here when dust starts to fall. I don't trust this landscape where the trees crackle with secrets and the water smells wild, and the ridges and the bugs and the birds take on a new urgency. I get up from the bench, walk and keep on walking. The path is littered with snails that crunch beneath my feet, making me wince every step. Maybe I should go and have it out with Mac and find out what she really knows. If she only knows half of my story, maybe I could fudge things. The rain starts up again. A sparrow swoops too close. The vibration of its feathers a frantic chord that tears at my nerves. It would mean even more lies. The lies are now following me from place to place. When it ends, the urge to keep moving is overwhelming. Skirting past the cottage, I find myself heading up towards the road, negotiating the rough track for my unsuitable sandals. I'm hunched up, hugging myself, and the rain is slick and cold on the exposed parts of me. It's late, maybe Mac will have gone to bed, but postponing the conversation until morning will just prolong the agony. I feel sick, a bit green around the gills, as Mac would say, but I've been that way for months. I close my eyes as I walk, tilting my face to the rain. Light floods my vision. Headlights nosing out of Mac's driveway, and the rain floating soft and yellow in the harsh beam. I'm a rabbit, caught, standing there with my hair plastered to my scalp and my wet top with my dirty toes. The car door bangs. And Arthur is beside me, solid and warm, smelling of damp wool, holding out a folded umbrella. Are you crazy? First Ma and now you. What's going on tonight? It's raining. I can see that. Where's your coat? I don't have an answer for that. Just because Arthur took me for a drive doesn't give him the right to treat me like a child or a friend. We're not mates. I'm just taking a walk. Get in the car, I'll take you home. You get in the car. He brandishes the umbrella at me. The rain is making his hair curl, and he looks like he's missing his warm kitchen. I suppose he'd rather be anywhere but here, trying to reason with a crazy person. I relent and snatch the umbrella from him, make a show of pressing the little steel button and pushing up the shaft. Its black wings flop around uselessly. I suddenly feel very weary. I thrust it back at him. I don't want it. I'm perfectly capable of making my own way home. Take it anyway. His face is set, turned. Rain dribbles from his long eyelashes like tears. I wonder what's wrong with his mother now. You take it. You're getting soaked yourself. The umbrella wilts as he realises I'm not going to cooperate. He changes tack. So, what did Reuben want? I mean, how did it go? guilt paralyses me. Should I tell him that his mother knows my secret, that my time here might be running out? Rain trickles down my neck and my brow feels tired. It's still over. That's good, isn't it? Is it? Is it? I give a harsh laugh, which isn't a laugh. Go home, Martha, go back to your fairy cakes. I turn on my heel, difficult in console shoes, as Sally gusts after me. Don't be so friggin' prickly, I'm concerned about you, that's all. Aren't I allowed to care? I swing around to face him. No, you're not. That's how it all starts. Sympathy, caring, all that shite. And then you end up with a piece of your soul missing. I know, he snaps back. Then softer. I know.
That's a great song. Thank you. So we were talking before the session began formally about this journey one makes from, as many of you are, beginning your writing lives, working quietly and privately, to starting to share work, to then sending it out to be published, to then becoming published, and now working on your third book. And we talked about this idea of gathering around you, starting to have a sense of your community of readers. Can you talk to us a little about what that's like, and how the changes that are brought about, and how you feel that you've changed as a writer?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with the word private. I think writing starts with privacy, and everybody that's here today has probably started writing in private. I know I never showed my work to anybody really until I came on the programme. I started as an undergraduate and I didn't actually get to do creative writing until fourth year, I think, at that time. So I hadn't really shared my writing with anybody, not my fiction anyway. I had worked for a short time on a local newspaper, but that was slightly different. I think creative writing, or any kind of fiction or poetry, is it's very close to the heart. It's coming from a place where you don't always want to share that with anybody. So it's really, really important to have good people around you. You've all taken the step of being on a programme, and it's really important to, we talked about it earlier, network. It's a horrible word, but actually just making those connections with other writers. And I think you really need that support. You need it before you get published, and you definitely need it after you get published. I think what I didn't realise when you get published, that your work becomes not something that's close to you, but something that's close to everybody. You're giving it away, basically. You have a readership then, which is very flattering, but also it makes your work not private at all, and people sometimes have a different interpretation of your work. Also, you've got your publisher or your editor or your agent coming in saying they want more this or they want more that, or you need to build to this section. I remember when I first got published that they were talking about the demographic of the book, who it was going to appeal to. I hadn't even thought of that, and I don't think you should think of that when you're writing a book, but it definitely alters your perspective when you know that your success as a writer depends on basically how many books you sell. So that does change the timbre of what you're writing, definitely.
It's really interesting, Sandra, to investigate this, and you see it's quite clear that the publishers, Polygon, have done a very deliberate thing here. Come in. Feel free to come in. Everyone feels we don't want to. Come in. We're not a closed church. The cafe is open as always. The publishers have done a very deliberate and clear thing, you see, in creating this kind of parity of look. And I'm wondering if the plan... Yeah, well, quite. And I wonder, when you're talking about making certain decisions according to a brand, or according to an idea of not a series, but in a way what I was talking about when I introduced you, that there's this kind of particular Sandra Ireland thumbprint to the work.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, happily, that's how I want to work. I love folklore, and I like bringing ideas together. I like writing about relationships that go wrong. family life, so it all kind of comes together. But once you've had a success with one, and I think they're both, as you said, they're both very different stories, but I think the ideas behind them are the same, I think. They want, the publishers or the powers that be want you to keep producing that, they want to have that same success. And the third book that which will be out next spring, it's called The Unmaking of Ellie Rook. It's about domestic abuse. It's again very domestic noir. It's set in the home, and it's about a woman coming back to her home and seeing things from a different light. Covers, they were trying to get a cover. You're quite right. They're trying to get a cover to sort of match that, and it becomes quite obvious then this is what they want you to produce. And for other markets as well, because it's not just the UK now.
I was going to say, can you talk a little about it, because you've just had successful international sales, even in India as well. Yeah,
it's going to be published in India, I think before Christmas. It's going to be published in the US in summer and Germany in the autumn. So of course they have their own ideas about what they want as well. And the pressure is on that you have to sell the third book to them too. So yeah, it definitely constrains what you write about.
Well, publishers love series. This is the thing. I mean, this is where there are all kinds of different writers and different kinds of writing. But for sure, it's a case that a publisher will be very happy to know that you're going to produce work of a certain shape and kind, because then this readership can grow. And of course we've got lots of examples of the great success stories of that sort. Henry Mantell, Ali Smith, and so on. The question becomes the extent to which you then can break ranks, if ever you want to, or whether indeed it's a very happy place to be in that, creating your own community and world.
Well, I think at the moment I'm in quite a happy place creatively. I'm also doing a non-fiction book, which is a spin-off from this one, and it's about mill folklore. So I do sort of not corner the market, but my little step in the market is around folklore, and I think they like that, and I like that, and it's not an untapped source, but it's a very good source for writers, especially Scottish folklore, and maybe I'll take that further afield, but it's definitely part of what I'm doing now, and they like that, and I like that.
I think that's really exciting, Sandra. Isn't this it's really exciting to hear this idea of finding the thing that's your own and then claiming it.
Yeah, but I think it's got to be your passion, because if it isn't, it shows through.
Yeah.
If you're cynically churning out something that you think will sell, I think publishers kind of see that as well, and I think it's really got to come from your heart.
That's right. That's just really, really good advice for all of you. And that idea that you might start with something that you're interested in, or you might start with something that's quite small, and from there you just build on and build on and build on. Let's have some time for questions. Do feel free to come in. It's not closed. The cafe's open. I don't want to be the only one asking questions. I'm sure you must all have loads.
I have some questions, more stages. I was intrigued that you were talking about woman-centric stories. Why does that need to be a Christian? Why can't it just be a woman-centric story? No one says I've read a book and it's a man-centric story.
Oh, we do.
I've read lots of man-centric stories. I don't think this is all about men. I'm quite happy to read a woman-centric story and not say, well, why isn't there any men in here? I think it's quite a good boost for women that they can now write stories and not have to justify why there were men in their stories. Why not? I was intrigued by that, because if it had been a male writer talking about something, would you raise the same question and say, why are you writing a woman-centric story?
Yeah, I think you're right. My answer to that is that it's a woman's story. The story is told by women, and in art as in life. As we said, it's the voice that carries the story through. So if the men are not dominant in that person's life, they're not going to be dominant in the story. Yeah, it's a point, isn't it?
It's part of a larger issue, which is the extent to which gender has meaning across art altogether, whether we approach the art first of all, entirely fresh and new, or whether it's always going to be attached to other contexts, but always a rich one to explore.
And interestingly, my fourth novel, which I'm just finishing at the moment, the character is a much older woman, and I did sort of have a meeting as to whether that would be acceptable. And this is apparently what publishers are very open to now, is the older woman character.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Fourth novel is
Yeah.
really finished.
Yeah.
This is someone who is working very hard.
Well, you say that, but I don't know where I get time to write.
So we've got the third one, and that's the undoing,
The Unmaking of Ellie Root.
Great.
Yeah.
The Unmaking of Birlinn, and that's coming out next spring.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one, do you have a title for that yet?
I think it's going to be called Sight Unseen, and it's about our perception of things. It's, I can't say too much about it.
Sight Unseen, I certainly see sitting here.
Yeah.
The Unmaking of Birlinn has a different kind of mood, you're
Yeah.
saying, for a similar cover.
Well, hopefully, I actually have. Would you like to see the cover?
Oh, yes. You saw it here first.
Sorry. This is just a little, okay, good.
We've got lots of writers here who are interested in domestic situations and houses and the uncanny and the things that go on beneath the surface. We've got crime writers here. There's a lot that we can learn from Sandra's work.
This is an experiment. I hope you can see these, but I was given about 18 or 19 covers. So this is one of them. Okay. And this is one of the other ones.
Oh, it's great.
And that's the other one. So which one would you pick? Yeah, that's the one it's going to be.
What is it?
We thought the other one was just a little bit too weird.
This is like a full-on crime novel cover.
Yeah, it's like a dead body, isn't it? Yeah. And it's not. I felt this was more like a lost child, and that's what the story is about.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
How exciting.